In Manitowoc County Court asking for a new trial. Brendan Dassey wants his videotaped confession thrown out. He's convicted of killing Teresa Halbach in 2005. His uncle, Stephen Avery, was also convicted in the murder. And Channel 5's Anjanette Levy has been in court all day. Joins us now live with the latest. Anjanette?
Nearly 3 years, Tammy, after Brendan Dassey was convicted of killing Teresa Halbach, he is back here. He has a team of lawyers from Northwestern University's School of Law. These lawyers specialize in wrongful convictions and false confessions. Brendan Dassey's former attorney, Len Kaczynski, was on the stand most of the day. Dassey says Kaczynski was ineffective and spent more time talking to the media than helping with his case. Dassey recanted that confession and has claimed investigators suggested most of the answers he gave. We're learning today that Len Kaczynski hired a private investigator named Michael O'Kelly to assist him. From testimony given today, it sounds like O'Kelly was more interested in helping the state with its case against Stephen Avery than helping Brendan Dassey.
What can you tell me about what's going on here?
I guess as I got this, I started getting concerned that he's doing the prosecutor's work for him. And his demands, I think, were
well, you had
excessive.
Did you talk to Michael Kelly, by the way, about the concerns that you had, that you just expressed about?
I don't think I ever talked to him about his attitude, but I know I told him a number of his demands, and they were excessive and unnecessary, and he was running up time and costs without any benefit to the case.
And tonight at 6, we'll hear more from Len Kaczynski. We'll also hear in questioning from the defense more about this private investigators and why they're saying he didn't give Brendan Dassey a fair shake. Tammy.
All right, thanks, Anjanette Levy, live in Manitowoc tonight. For her murder. Channel 5's Anjanette Levy joins us live now from Manitowoc with more on today's hearing. Anjanette?
Tammy, Brendan Dassey is arguing that all of his attorneys were ineffective in defending him against the charges. Today, his new attorneys revealed details they believe show that his attorneys did not give him the best defense.
Brendan Dassey says he should get a new trial since all of his attorneys failed to represent him properly. Dassey's current attorneys claim Len Kaczynski was too friendly with the media.
I was very, very careful not to be committal as to whether or not Mr. Dassey was involved in this or not.
But Dassey's attorneys view Len Kaczynski's multiple media meetings differently, since they say Kaczynski indicated his client could be guilty and seeking a plea bargain.
Certainly all the signals you've been sending into the press had to do with plea agreements.
Well, I don't know if I was sending signals. That's the question they kept asking. I said I didn't initiate the contacts with the media. They were just bombarding our office.
At this point, never once did you mention in the press that Brendan said that he is not guilty, right?
Correct.
The attorneys also claim Kaczynski failed to make the proper arguments to the court when trying to get Dassey's confession thrown out.
Have you ever consulted with an expert in confession cases?
Not prior to this one, no.
Kaczynski was also questioned about a polygraph test his investigator administered to Dassey and why he hired this particular investigator.
After O'Kelly told me that it was inconclusive, he made some comment to the effect that he thought that Mr. Dassey was a kid without a conscience or something.
Knowing that that's Mr. O'Kelly's view of the case, you then went on to hire him as your investigator, right?
Yes.
And we're expecting to hear from that private investigator, Michael O'Kelly, next week. He should be taking the stand. This hearing is expected to last about 4 days, and we'll be back here Tuesday morning when testimony resumes. Tom?
All right, thanks. Anjanette Levy live in Manitowoc tonight.
Authorities in the Marinette He says his defense attorneys were ineffective. Dassey was convicted of raping Teresa Halbach on Halloween of 2005 and then helping his uncle Stephen Avery murder her. Anjanette Levy now with the details from today's hearing.
Brendan Dassey says he should get a new trial since all of his attorneys failed to represent him properly. Dassey's current attorneys claim Len Kaczynski was too friendly with the media.
I was very, very careful not to be committal as to whether or not Mr. Dassey was involved in this or not.
But Dassey's attorneys view Len Kaczynski's multiple media meetings differently, since they say Kaczynski indicated his client could be guilty and seeking a plea bargain.
Certainly all the signals you've been sending into the press had to do with plea agreements.
Well, I don't know if I was sending signals. That's the question they kept asking. I said I didn't initiate the contacts with the media. They were just bombarding our office.
At this point, never once did you mention in the press that Brendan said that he is not guilty, right?
Correct.
The attorneys also claim Kaczynski failed to make the proper arguments to the court when trying to get Dassey's confession thrown out.
Have you ever consulted with an expert in confession cases?
Not prior to this one, no.
Kaczynski was also questioned about a polygraph test his investigator administered to Dassey and why he hired this particular investigator.
After O'Kelly told me that it was inconclusive, he made some comment to the effect that he thought that Mr. Dassey was a kid without a conscience or something.
Knowing that that's Mr. O'Kelly's view of the case, you then went on to hire him as your investigator, right?
Yes.
Testimony resumes Tuesday morning. Anjanette Levy, Channel 5 News, Manitowoc.
And at least 20 witnesses could testify next week.
Interrogators, and now he wants a new trial after being convicted of helping his uncle Stephen Avery kill Teresa Halbach in 2005. Channel 5's Anjanette Levy has been following the case and is live now with new details. Anjanette?
Tammy, today's testimony focused on that 4-hour videotaped statement that Brendan Dassey gave to investigators in which he said he helped rape and kill Teresa Halbach. The defense called an expert in false confessions who said that investigators used psychologically coercive techniques to get the then teenager to implicate himself in the crimes. Dr. Richard Leo says he reviewed statements Dassey made to investigators in February and March 2006. Clips were played in which Dr. Leo said he believed investigators supplied information to Dassey, which he then repeated to please them. Dr. Leo said this often happens unintentionally. Here's a little bit of today's testimony.
Do you have an opinion as to whether the techniques that we've shown you here today, used by the officers in the case on February 27th and on March 1st, were psychologically coercive?
Yes, it's my opinion that they were.
And do you think that telling a teenager like Brendan that he will be all right even if he implicates himself further in the crime is a tactic that increases the risk of an unreliable confession?
Yes.
Why?
Because if somebody is being repeatedly accused and pressured to say something, and they keep saying no, 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 and then they are told that that's not the truth, and they're not being honest, and so truth and honesty become code words for what the interrogator wants to hear.
And that's exactly what Brendan Dassey's attorneys say happened here. And tonight at 6, we're going to hear more from Dr. Leo about his opinions on false confessions and how it applies to Brendan Dassey's case. Tammy?
All right, thanks. Anjanette Levy live in Manitowoc. We have new information today about
2005 of the murder of Teresa Halbach. Well, today a judge heard arguments about Dassey's confession. And Anjanette Levy joins us now live from Manitowoc with the details. Anjanette?
Tom, Brendan Dassey's current attorneys say he didn't get the proper representation before or during his trial, and that the jury never heard just exactly how easily the teen could be prodded into confessing falsely. Today, the defense called its own expert who said that Dassey was more susceptible to coercion due to his age and low IQ. Dr. Richard Leo is an expert in false confessions and police interrogation techniques. Dr. Leo analyzed Brendan Dassey's statements to police and testified he believes psychologically coercive techniques were used.
You know, the police officers themselves may deny that it's a strategy that they're using or that, in their opinion, it rises to the level of a threat or a promise, but from a behavioral point of view, the answer is yes, that we have observed that.
Dr. Leo pointed to segments of the 4-hour tape where he believes investigators tried to induce the teenager to implicate himself in exchange for leniency. Leo says the cops also led Dassey to believe they knew more than they did.
Be honest with us. We already know it's okay. We're going to help you through this, all right?
Dr. Leo testified Dassey was fed information by his interrogators and could have had prior knowledge from news accounts and family discussions. He said this contamination was never presented to the jury.
You really have to break it down to see contamination. I think jurors tend to get focused on the confession process itself.
Okay. And by break it down, you mean show them precisely on the interrogation tape where contamination occurs.
Right, step by step.
Leo also said it's common in false confessions for children to recant to a parent shortly after confessing. A clip of his statement shows his mother questioning him just before his arrest.
Did you? Huh?
Not really.
What do you mean, not really?
I think that's my head.
The state started its cross-examination, of Dr. Leo late this afternoon. The state says Dr. Leo doesn't have all the pieces to the puzzle since he didn't analyze all of the information available about Brendan Dassey and his IQ. Dr. Leo will return to the stand tomorrow morning for more cross-examination, and we'll be here and bring you the latest.
All right, thanks, Anjanette. Anjanette Levy live in Manitowoc this evening.
A Portage County.
Back in 2005, the 20-year-old now has a new defense team trying to convince a judge that Dassey's confession was coerced and his lawyers were ineffective in defending him. Anjanette Levy has today's testimony from court.
Dr. Richard Leo is an expert in false confessions. He testified investigators used psychologically coercive techniques when interrogating 16-year-old Brendan Dassey, most notably when they told him they knew what happened.
Be honest with us, we already know it's okay.
False evidence ploys are often involved in false confessions. They're considered a risk factor for false confessions. They are considered particularly influential on individuals who have low IQs or who are juveniles.
Dr. Leo believes Dassey's statements from February and March 2006 were contaminated, meaning he knew some details from other sources.
They either were fed to Mr. Dassey by the police, or the police cued Mr. Dassey toward the right answer, or they were in the public domain. They had been reported in the media.
Leo also discussed a clip of Brendan Dassey apparently recanting to his mother shortly after confessing.
Did you? Huh?
Not really.
What do you mean, not really?
I think that's my head.
Have you seen other cases and situations where children recant their statements to their mothers when left alone with their parents?
Yes.
But prosecutors question why Dr. Leo hasn't reviewed all of Brendan Dassey's psychological records and interviews. He'll return to the stand Wednesday morning. Anjanette Levy, Channel 5 News, Manitowoc.
And the investigators who interviewed Brendan.
And Channel 5's Anjanette Levy is live in Manitowoc with the latest testimony. Anjanette?
Aaron, prosecutors spent a lot of the morning trying to discredit a defense expert who specializes in false confessions. This person believes that Brendan Dassey's statement to investigators could have been coerced and that the teenager could have made up the story simply to please his interrogators. Dr. Richard Leo says children with low IQs are more susceptible to making false confessions. Dr. Leo said he's not here to say whether or not that statement is true or false, since that's up to a jury and they've already decided that. The prosecutors grilled him on his findings.
Your opinion as to whether or not this could have been a false confession.
Well, of course it's my opinion based on my expertise and my research and knowledge.
And in this particular case, it's still physically possible that the defendant was in fact an accessory in this homicide based on the statements he provided.
Well, correct. I'm not here to say that this is not possible. If he was there, he could provide an accurate and true confession. Again, the problem with contamination is we just don't know.
Today, Mark Fremgen, that was Brendan Dassey's trial attorney, he took the stand. Brendan Dassey's current attorneys are saying that he didn't provide a good defense for the teenager back in 2007. We'll have his testimony coming up tonight at 6, Aaron.
All right, thank you. Anjanette Levy live in Manitowoc tonight. Well,
Brendan Dassey's attorneys claim the jury should have seen this video clip. They call it a recantation. The state calls it confessor's remorse.
Did you? Huh?
Not really.
What do you mean, not really?
They got to my head.
One of Dassey's trial attorneys explained why he didn't feel the jury should see it.
That's what this was bringing, was a motion to the confession versus just the question answer with a child who has some clear deficiencies.
Dassey's current attorneys claim his 4-hour-long statement was the result of suggestion by police.
And he did say they made me say it.
Dassey's attorneys say the jury should have heard from an expert on police interrogations, but didn't. They also claim the jury should have seen news stories from which Brendan could have learned details of the crime. Prosecutors question Mark Frumgen about not using that evidence at trial.
Brendan didn't consistently tell you, I got this all off the news. Never heard that, did you?
He never said that.
Brendan seemed like the kind of kid to you that reads the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel?
No.
Dassey's trial attorney Mark Frumgen also testified that he encouraged Brendan Dassey on many occasions to accept a plea deal from the state, but he refused. Ann Jeanette Levy, Channel 5 News, Manitowoc.
And testimony resumes.
In the case, Channel 5's Ann Jeanette Levy is live at the Manitowoc County Courthouse with details. Ann Jeanette?
Aaron, Michael O'Kelly was hired by Brendan Dassey, his defense team in 2006. Michael O'Kelly was the defense investigator on this case, but Dassey's new attorneys believe that Michael O'Kelly and Len Kaczynski, his then attorney, were more concerned with getting Brendan Dassey to plead guilty, take a deal, and testify against his uncle Stephen Avery than they were in proving that Brendan was innocent. Michael O'Kelly admitted he was looking for evidence the state could use against Stephen Avery, in particular a knife used in Teresa Halbach's murder. O'Kelly said his efforts were geared toward getting Brendan the best deal possible. But Brendan Dassey's new attorneys believe O'Kelly wanted both Dassey and Avery to go to prison. He even broke down on the stand when looking at blue ribbons and photos of Teresa Halbach. He was asked to read emails he had written to Len Kaczynski in which he made his feelings about the Avery family clear.
I just keep thinking about that blue ribbon. I'm sorry. I can find no good in any member. These people are pure evil. This is truly where the devil resides in comfort.
O'Kelly was also questioned at length about a videotaped interrogation he conducted of Brendan Dassey. That was part of a plea negotiation. He was trying to get Brendan Dassey to confess to him so they could then go to the state and say, hey, the kid confessed again, he's ready to talk to you and turn state's evidence, take a deal, and testify. The new attorneys say that was certainly improper, and we'll show you some of that videotaped interrogation tonight at 6.
All right. Thank you. Ann Jeanette Levy live in Manitowoc.
As Ann Jeanette Levy reports, Dassey's new attorney claims the tape was meant to help prosecutors more than Brendan Dassey.
Michael O'Kelly was hired by Len Kaczynski to work as an investigator for Brendan Dassey shortly after his arrest. But at some point, Dassey's current attorneys say O'Kelly started trying to help the state convict Stephen Avery.
At this point, Mr. Kaczynski knows that you are out gathering evidence to help the state's case, right?
That is quite clear, yes.
Dassey's attorneys say that was improper, along with O'Kelly trying to get his own client to confess on videotape in preparation for plea negotiations. O'Kelly showed Dassey photos of the crime scene and Teresa Halbach.
This is the last thing that Teresa saw. She saw this sign right here. You recognize that sign? What does the sign say? Okay. It's pretty pathetic, isn't it? Do you want to spend the rest of your life in prison? Okay. You did a very bad thing.
Yeah, but I was only there for the fire, though.
O'Kelly's loyalty to Dassey was called into question as he read from an email he had written about the Avery family.
A friend of mine suggested, this is a one-branch family tree. Cut this tree down. We need to end the gene pool here.
O'Kelly defended his actions, saying he wanted Brendan to get a good plea deal. Michael O'Kelly also defended his actions. He says that family members were telling him that Stephen Avery was actually trying to pin this murder on Brendan Dassey and one of his brothers. Ann Jeanette Levy, Channel 5 News, Manitowoc.
And testimony continues.
Halbach. Channel 5's Ann Jeanette Levy has been following this case and joins us live with details. Ann Jeanette?
Aaron, Brendan Dassey decided against testifying at today's hearing. Much of the testimony today focused on whether or not Brendan Dassey, at age 16, felt he was free to leave when he was questioned by investigators. Dassey was interviewed in February and March 2006. Each time he was advised of his Miranda warnings, meaning he was told he was free to leave and that anything he said could be used against him in a court of law. Investigators also testified they asked Dassey's mother, Barb Todick, permission to speak to him, despite not being required to do so by Wisconsin law. They said they felt it was the right thing to do. Dassey's attorneys believe his mother should have been present when they were questioning him.
Would it have been at that time your preference to have Ms. Yonda present during the interview or not present during the interview?
It was her decision. She made the decision not to be. It didn't matter to me one way or another.
Did you try to join him?
I tried, but they more or less told me that it was in my best interest to go wait in a waiting room because Brendan was going to give him a gruesome story.
How did you feel about not being able to be in that room?
Upset.
The state maintains that the Dassey's attorneys are just grasping at straws here. They don't think there's any basis for a new trial in these allegations. Tonight at 6, we're going to hear some jailhouse phone calls, though, from Dassey's family in which they pressure him to not accept a plea deal. Aaron?
All right, thank you, Anjanette Levy, live in Manitowoc. Well, Calumet County, and as Anjanette Levy reports, the hearing ended with the investigators who heard his confessions and a push from the Avery family to keep him quiet.
In February and March 2006, investigators re-interviewed Brendan Dassey. They believed he knew more than he was telling.
Brendan was crying uncontrollably at times. Brendan had lost a lot of weight.
On both occasions, investigators said they read Dassey his rights to cover all of their bases.
He was made aware that he was not under arrest prior to this.
Dassey's attorneys don't believe the teen understood his rights, despite his mother allowing investigators to talk to him.
Would you have responded differently to their request to question Brendan if you had known that they were going to accuse him of murder?
Yes, I would have told him that I wanted to be there.
Dassey's attorneys say his confession was coerced and suggested to him by investigators. Prosecutors say the only coercion that took place was by Dassey's family. A jailhouse phone call between Dassey and his grandfather was played.
Say nothing happened, you know. They made me say all of this. Tell them that, you know, and stick to your guns. Don't go for a pre-bargain or this and that, you know, because you do that, then you're hurting both of you guys. Yeah.
Brendan Dassey was asked by Judge Fox whether or not he would testify at this hearing. He opted not to. Anjanette Levy, Channel 5 News, Manitowoc.